just who we are, because I know we're focused today on Sonic Wall. Sonic Wall are our primary cyber supplier. We vendor. We resell for them firewalls. Well, James will come on to it. All that stuff afterwards. But who we are, we're an IT managed service provider. We were founded in 2003 by Simon Newton, who I think is probably on the call. And we offer a number of IT managed services out into the marketplace, predominantly around small and medium size enterprises. Lots of different sectors, but legal, financial, accountancy, construction, those kind of environments, but lots of different vertical markets. Core offerings, we offer fully managed IT support, so complete outsource IT departments, help desk services, proactive services, monitoring, infrastructure management to ensure your kind of operational continuity. We offer co-managed IT services, which means there's an IT department and we kind of almost act as a consultative arm of your own IT department. We look at particular areas like cybersecurity, compliance, cloud services. We design and manage cloud environments and network infrastructure, disaster recovery systems. Strong emphasis on security. That's really prevalent at the moment, I think, around there's lots of reports in the newspapers around hacking and people having money taken and data stolen. So we work a lot with Sonic Wall a lot around not just preventing it happening, but also how you move on and recover from that afterwards. We look at stuff like Cyber Essentials Plus, and now as well we're really looking at kind of AI strategy and professional services, consultancy around AI. And AI integration and project-based IT services, often in partnership with Microsoft. But what we pride ourselves on is a consultative, customer-first approach, long-standing client relationships with our team of account managers, and a reputation for kind of reliability and responsiveness. Our ethos centers around understanding client business goals, tailoring IT solutions to support growth and efficiency. So that's the way we like to work. And what we're doing with the networking piece that we've done is bring best of breed of our vendors into client environments so that they can actually look at and decide what might be best for their company moving forward and how we can support that growth. And to that end, I would like to introduce James Eggington, who is from Sonic Wall. Sonic Wall are one of our key vendors, and he's going to talk you through some of the cybersecurity battlefield. Let's put it that way. James, over to you.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Morning, everybody. As Chris mentioned, I'm James. I've been with Sonic Wall now for about coming on to 5 years. We're an American company, as you can tell from the title there. Overcoming a cybersecurity battlefield sounds like an Americanism and quite scary, but it's actually the reality of today's landscape. I'm going to be taking you through a bit about the threat landscape, and it's not to scare, it's to educate. And then we'll get on to one of our products, actually, which alongside Riven, we're able to provide you as end users with, and it's a really modernized way that you can access corporate resources. So without further ado, let's crack through the slides. So if we touch on what the threat landscape kind of looks like today, really there's no perimeter. If you turn back, I would say 10 years, but probably 7, 8 years, we're all sat in offices, we're all behind 4 walls. We had a very centralized network, very easy to manage. Everyone was in the office, but now I'd hazard a guess to say that people on this call are working from home, working from the office, maybe coffee shops, or if you're on the road, you might have stopped off at a service station. I'm here working remotely at my house. So with that, it becomes really difficult to manage everything that you've got on your network. And actually, those exposure points are massive. We're accessing corporate resources, corporate data from, for me, an approved laptop. I've also got my personal mobile. You might have a tablet. So actually it's location, but also devices as well that you're connecting in from. So more and more cybersecurity solutions are required to secure your network. I read a stat the other day that around 75 different cybersecurity solutions are used to protect a enterprise organization. And for SMB to mid-market, that's around 15 to 25. So if you think of the integrations, the management, the licensing, the certifications, the connectivity, you name it, that's a very tricky thing to manage. And it's kind of cliche, but we talk about cybersecurity like an onion. It's got lots of different layers, there's lots of different areas, there's lots of different places where your data resides. So to make sure, A, that you've got complete coverage is really important, but to make sure you've got that connectivity between products and slight overlap, again, is really, really critical. And I would always recommend reaching out to a reseller, a managed service provider, just like Ribbon Associates, to kind of help you through that process. They see it every day. They're helping customers, on their journey, whether that's journey to the cloud, whether that's an access piece. As Chris mentioned, there's lots of new technologies like AI, etc., to get involved with. So definitely lean on the guys over at Ribbon Associates for that. But then come to the last point as well. More and more traffic is now encrypted. So around 90% of web traffic now is encrypted traffic. If you look on your browser at the moment and you look on the search bar, if you've got a website in there that's HTTPS or it's got padlock against it, that is an encrypted website. So around 90% of traffic is encrypted. It sounds pretty very secure, but if you're not unpacking that, saying elsewhere, sure it's all nice and safe and secure, leaving out 90% of that is like from Windows, you might have heard of it as TLS encryption. It's essentially exactly the same thing. So I'd always recommend having a look at that. I'll leave this slide up for a minute or so and give you a chance to scan that QR code. If you scan it with your phone, that will take you to sonicwall.com/threat report. And there you'll be able to download and look into our 2025 threat report, which was released a couple of months ago now. Essentially, we as a business release a threat report every year, and it shows you year-on-year increases, decreases, and trends into the threat landscape. So this isn't, again, it's not to scare, it's really to educate, to make sure that you guys as customers understand what the threat landscape looks like and are able to make decisions forward based on where the threats are coming from. And that might help you decide on different projects. It might help you decide on where you put your cyber budget moving forwards. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to scan that QR code. If you haven't, again, sonicwall.com/threat report. So scanning that QR code will take you through to I think it's a 90-page document, which I'll admit is very heavy. So for on the call today, we've simplified it just for UK specific data. And again, these are year-on-year increases or decreases into certain threat types. So as you can see, malware has increased by 13%. And if you refer to ransomware attacks being down 25%, these kind of correlate with each other. So ransomware is very targeted, very time consuming to put together. It's kind of a one chance. If it works, fantastic. There's a really detrimental effect on the organization, as we've seen with Jaguar Land Rover, M&S, Co-op, etc., and more recently actually Asahi on their supply chain. These are really, really targeted attacks. But the more attack, if you look at quantity, usually more in terms of type. These are your more kind of basics in terms of attack vectors. So these are phishing attacks, the links, the malicious websites, credential, that kind of thing, which is really easy for attackers to put out there. They can send out a malicious link to tens, if not hundreds of thousands of email addresses. And if they get a 0.1% hit rate, fantastic. They've got into a lot of organizations. So that's kind of the malicious malware versus ransomware with IoT attacks. So IoT stands for Internet of Things. It will anything that's can connect onto your network. So if you think of an office, you think of CCTV cameras, maybe smart fridges, smart, I don't know, anything really in the kitchen these days. You think of doorbells, anything that has that Wi-Fi capability, counts as an IoT device. And they're all standard office, but they can also include things that you can plug into laptops connected to. So these are pretty much a nightmare for IT managers. They're very, very hard to track. These aren't encrypted. They're not got any security on them in terms of the device. They're not hardened in any way. So from that perspective, they're a real vulnerability to the organization. And we're seeing more and more of these types of attacks on these specific tools. There was a very famous IoT attack that took place probably 5-6 years ago now in a Las Vegas casino. If you imagine a Las Vegas casino, reception area, you've got a massive fish tank in the background. This fish tank had temperature and filter controls that were hooked up to a smartphone. So a ransomware attack on that casino via controls on that fish tank that were hooked up to the network. They put a ransomware attack on that casino. I think it was for $2 or $3 million. That ransomware was paid. The data and the customer information, credit card details were given back as part of the agreement. But it just shows you how simply a hacker can get onto your network. So I'd always recommend, and the guys at Rhythm can run you kind of network segregation, segmenting your network into business critical and non-business critical. Make sure that you've got those two. You're fully covered. I mentioned IoT attacks are up massively. We've kind of spoken on encrypted threats. 90% of web traffic is encrypted now. So the main takeaways from this is but also your standardized malicious attacks, malicious attempts like phishing, business email compromise are still massively in play and massively on the increase. That links into the points at the bottom there. So just to give you some context, we've got a SOC team, and essentially that provides 24/7 monitoring across network, cloud environments, and also endpoint environments, so that if the worst does happen and a hacker does infiltrate the security protocols and the tools that you've got in play at the moment, we're able to contain and isolate that attack and make sure it doesn't spread laterally across the network. So that specific team from last year identified that 85% of those critical alerts or actionable alerts they had to remediate and were down to credential compromise, were down to business email compromise. So for hackers, that's a really simple and easy way to get onto the network because it's through the front door essentially. If they're able to get your credentials to log on to their Office 365 accounts, for example, they're able to get onto their emails, they're able to access all the data, everything is in there. So to make sure you have access policies and space for that remote access is very, very important because from our perspective, they're the most vulnerable pieces. I appreciate the past few slides have been a bit doom and gloom. So let's talk about how we can help. So I'm just going to talk briefly before I get to the product side of things about a tool that we implement across our entire portfolio. So it's called RTDMI. It's a patented tool to SonicWall, and it stands for real-time deep memory inspection. So it really does exactly what it says on the tin. It looks in deep memory of the website, of the email, of the code, to understand if there's ransomware or malware written to avoid, the threat prevention that you have in place, the tools and the security measures that you have in place. We're the only vendor that can look in memory to understand this, and more cyber criminals are being very clever with the way that they create the code to avoid these types of security tools. This equates to about 210,000 never before seen variants. The never before seen 0-day variants are probably the ones that are going to cause the most damage to your organization. These are the ones that will pass through because we're them and they're not part of the database that we can easily match against. The tools that we have to find those and understand them with parts of AI, with parts of machine learning included. So these never before seen variants of malware are really important to understand, really important to see, and then they're added to the database to make sure you're matched against moving forward. So it's a really good tool. It's available as part of our portfolio, whether it's the firewall, whether it's the remote access piece, etc. This is kind of the fundamentals of what we have. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an insight into the threat landscape. I'm now going to talk about a relatively new product to our portfolio and something that we're encouraging all customers to move across to. So it's called Cloud Secure, or you might hear me refer to as CSC because we love acronym here at SonicWall. Part of the secure edge deployment portfolio. So if you've got remote access tools in place at the moment, like Extender, if you've got SonicWall or like SSL VPNs, this is a more modernized way that you can, something that you can implement, which means that you can access corporate resources, access a corporate network more securely moving forwards with lots of different areas of security included on top of what you're already using with SSL VPNs. And to give you some background, Cloud Secure Edge was an acquired technology that we acquired about 2 years ago from a company called Banyan Security. They had a massive spike, as you can imagine, for a remote access company through the COVID period, through everyone working remotely. And they've secured some enormous organizations across the world. But we are implementing that same technology for enterprise customers across the board, all the way down to SMB. So this is an affordable way that you can boost your security levels through the remote access piece. And it's really flexible, very granular, as you'll see in the coming slides. So I suppose you're probably wondering why this needs to change and kind of what the new reality is. So if you think of businesses now, as I mentioned at the start, I'm connecting from a corporate device, but I've actually got a huge amount of ways and areas that I can connect to corporate resources through. Whether that's devices, that's the amount of users, third parties coming onto your network, you've got contractors, these can be included into this. So very complex way to manage, and the bad guys understand this and they know this. So they've got more extra points that they can try and route through, and they're becoming more and more clever with the way that they put those malicious attacks onto the network. So that's what unfortunately we've seen with profile exploits and ransomware attacks over the summer. So as you can imagine, this is causing IT admins a right headache. They've got more devices on their network that they're trying to have visibility of. They're trying to push out more and more security tools to cover more areas. There's lots of data now that isn't just on-prem, it's hybrid. You might have SaaS applications like Office 365, Dropbox, G Suite that you're trying to secure to make sure that these different types of security tools, their users can continue their day-to-day activities without disruption, even though that they've got all this security on their devices. So really, really kind of difficult time for IT admins. And again, I've enforced the police to reach out to the set up and make sure that what you have in play is perfect. And this is kind of where the solution sits. So sorry, this is a bit of a busy slide, and it does build out quite a lot. But you might have heard me mention Net Extender or SSL VPNs. So SSL VPNs are quite a legacy technology. And unfortunately, we're seeing them being more and more peppered by the need now, and the action to replace those SSL VPNs with. And those SSL VPNs probably sit on firewall, so they're reliant on the hardware, they're reliant on making that hardware doesn't have any vulnerabilities, is patched correctly, is on the correct firmware. From a performance perspective and a throughput perspective, is scoped correctly, is right for your organization. And what you might see is, if these aren't the case, is slow, dropped connections, and an unreliable user experience. And from that perspective, that's all around kind of just accessing. But if you need the security, if we're talking about the security on top, with the design of SSL VPN, they're very simple and great 7 years ago. Tons of change. The way that SSL VPNs work is they trombone through the hardware out to the corporate resources. You do your multi-factor authentication. There you go. You've got access. That access isn't granular. The policies that you can create around it are very limited. And once you're in, you have access to everything but what we call keys to the kingdom. So if we can lock down certain areas of that, payroll, that's an easy way that we set up user groups to make sure that people are doing their jobs accurately. Work set maintain, sure that users are accessing what they need to for their day-to-day jobs. And then with a legacy VPN style solution, you've got authentication. You're authorized into that network. You're in, brilliant. You go. Whereas the cloud security solution provides you with continuous authentication. So we're in, fantastic. You can now have access to the corporate resource. But actually, we're going to continuously authenticate. Never trust, always verify that you are who you say you are. And if anyone sees or protocols drop, we can cut your RDP session, give you a reason why, and we'll get you back up and running to make sure that you have access in secure. So compared to the legacy VPN, SSL VPNs, the solution that it provides you management, heads of updates, patches, vulnerabilities, etc. We take care of that for you. And these are some of the network access. Another we think buzzword industry. Again, it links back to that always verify, never trust aspect, to make sure that you are accessing the corporate resources from a defined device that provides you with the access that you need. And protocols on. If any one of those security protocols or policies drops, will revoke that access. You've then got the protection against internet threats and credential compromise. So, as we ran through with the threat landscape, there's a huge amount of business email compromise taking place. Credential compromise is an easy way to get onto the network. It's essentially through the front door. And attackers are really peppering this type of approach. So, a cloud security solution provides a simple and effective way that you can stop against those phishing attacks and malicious websites. You can apply content filtering if you like, and obviously that device security is verified up front before the access is granted. Really, that's the way it should be. And then the bottom point there is kind of around the flexibility and the agility of the product. So have a think about your I think, do you have third parties accessing the network? Do you have contractors coming on to your network maybe 1 day a week, 2 days a week? If you do, you probably don't want to pay for a license for them for an entire year for them to access these corporate resources 1 day a week. So we're able to provide third parties easy, secure access to the specific resources that they require, not the entire database. It's based on the security posture of that user and the device and the role and the policies that they're authorized to view. So again, from a provisioning perspective, it's really this is a really kind of simple way that you can visualize it. It's basically everything I've just described in terms of how the licensing is split out. We split our licensing into two different aspects: private access, and then you've got the internet side access. So private access refers, it's essentially VPN on steroids. So this refers to accessing those corporate resources using AWS, Oracle, whatever you may have, leveraging those types of systems to make sure that you have access to them in the best way. And it provides you with that trust score, that always verify, never trust model, that continuous authentication that you're missing with the SSL VPN style of things. And then we can also provide you internet access, which will provide you with a secure web gateway, a kind of mini CASB, but just to make this is the aspect with the phishing emails, the malicious links, the malicious attachments that you may get through on things like Office 365, etc. You're able to mix the licensing. So if you have a reliance on both VPN, but also you want to look at securing your internet side, whether that's Office 365 or just having a secure gateway for internet websites, we can provide both. You can stack these licenses and we can bundle them together, which is a nice value add. That's it. I wanted to keep it kind of high level in terms of what the product is and what we can do, but just kind of some key takeaways here are around the ease of deployment and the management. So it's cloud first. Standalone product. You don't have firewall. You can have it as a standalone product. If you have a SonicWall firewall that's Gen 7 or newer, we have a firewall which you can provision and manage these users through. As I mentioned, it's cloud-based, right? So you've got no reliance on firmware updates. You don't need to patch. You don't need to upgrade things. We take care of that all in the background. And then from an integration perspective into your existing tools, we have an open EDR solutions. So whether you're running Sophos, CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, etc., you're simply able to spin up a connector through our OpenAI to look into that EDI side of things. Equally, if you've got a seam MDM solution, we're able to integrate with that too. So this isn't just providing another point product, it's actually bringing everything that you have together to make sure you have the correct access to those corporate resources. We optimize the user experience, so we have POPs, so points of presence across the world. So where with SSL VPNs or legacy VPN solutions, you might have slow or dropped connections, we'll find you the path of least resistance to the best connection wherever you are in the world. So wherever the nearest POP is, we provide you with that connection, and it's simply straightforward, easy connection that's really, really reliable. There's no kind of bottlenecks on throughput or performance as you would get with hardware. So because it's cloud-based, it's super elastic with the user counts. You can add, you can scale up, scale down as you wish. So it's a very, very agile solution. And then I think more importantly than everything else, you're boosting that security posture. So you're providing that posture management, the trust scores, the continuous authentication, and you've got the provide access to certain areas of the network and only certain areas of the network, ensuring that your data, customer information, personal information is completely secure regardless of where that user is. And finally, just some kind of coverage that we've had. I think the main one there, which was released probably a couple of months ago, is that we have appeared on the Gartner Magic Quadrant. If you're aware of the Gartner Magic Quadrant, you probably know that it's usually a pay-to-play style of appearance. So people mainly in the top right-hand corner will have paid millions of pounds to be there. We have, on merit, got onto the Gartner Magic Quadrant based on the technology, based on the customers we have, the reliability and security that we provide through the product. So that's something we're really proud of. And all of these are openly available to read online if you'd like some more verification. And I think with that, I'm going to hand back to Chris just to settle up everything here. But thank you for listening. If you need any kind of resources, if you'd like to speak with us directly, more than happy to have a chat. Equally, just reach out to the guys over at Ribbon Associates, and they'll definitely help you moving forwards. But Chris, back to you.
James, thanks ever so much. I think that's really interesting take on protecting what we have. There's been so much in the news around hacking Marks and Spencer's, Coca-Cola, all these companies, big companies. But also, I read something last week around I don't know what Clarkson's farm, but he was hacked a couple of weeks ago. They took 27,000 quid. God knows how they did it or how they got in. So it's very much prevalent at the moment, and I think we all need to kind of take note on that.